Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. As you all know, today we'll be starting the second session and the first class, which will be delivered by Dr. Arjun Anil, Assistant Professor, Department of Anatomy, Shiva Ayurvedic Medical College and Hospital. Sir is going to deal with the topic male reproductive system. So, before welcoming Sir, I would request Ms. Ritika to have a prayer.
ॐ नमामि धन्वन्तरि आदिदेवं सुरासुरे वन्दितं पादपादनं लोके जरारुके भय मृत्युनाशं दधारिषं विभिद औषधीनां धन्वन्त्री प्रमानाथं सर्वरोगे निवारकम् आयुर्वेद प्रभक्तारं वन्दे पीयूषं धायकम् सर्वे जना सुखिनो भवन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामया ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ
Thank you, Ms. Ritika. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Arjun Anil, Assistant Professor, Department of Rachana Sharira, Shiva Ayurvedic Medical College. Welcome to the session, sir.
Thank you, Anup sir. So I hope all are safe. Then I have to thank our principal sir and our MD sir for giving me this opportunity. So we can go to the today's topic, that is anatomy of the male reproductive system. I hope everyone can hear my voice and see this screen sharing. Okay, everyone
Yes.
can hear my voice, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible and your screen is also shared.
Okay, thank you. So the anatomy of the male reproductive system. So the reproductive system in men has components in the abdomen, pelvis, and the perineum. Okay. So its function is to produce, store, and releases the male gametes or the sperm. Okay. So the function of the reproductive system is to produce, then maintain, and to transfer of the sperm and its protective fluids. Okay. Then it also has the function to discharge the sperm to the within the female reproductive tract. Okay, so the function is to produce, store, and release the male gametes and to discharge the sperm within the female reproductive system. Then it also has a function to produce and secrete the sex hormones responsible for the maintaining of the male reproductive system. Okay, so it produces, stores, and releases the male gametes. Then it discharges the sperm to the female reproductive system. It secretes the male sex hormones that are responsible for the maintaining the male reproductive system. Then the components of the male reproductive system. Okay, so the major components are the testis, the epididymis, then the ductal difference. Okay, so the ductal difference is also called as vas difference, and the ejaculatory duct. Okay, so there are two in number, one on each side. Then the urethra and the penis in the midline. Okay, so the male reproductive system has one testis. Deepika did something to the screen share. So it has a testis, then the epididymis, then the vas deferens, and then ejaculatory duct on each side, and the urethra and the penis on the midline. Then it also has the accessory glands. Okay, a single prostrate, then a pair of seminal vesicle, and the pair of bulbourethral gland. Okay, so the male reproductive system can be divided into two: the external genital organs and the internal genital organs. Okay, so the external genital organs are the penis and the scrotum, and the internal genital organs are the testis, epididymis, the vas deferens, and the accessory glands. Okay, the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland. So the first classification is the external genital organs. So the first one in the external genital organs are the scrotum. Okay, so the scrotum, it is a cutaneous bag containing the left and the right testis, the epididymis, and the lower part of the spermatic cord. Okay, so it is a pouch of, it is a sac-like pouch of skin that contains the scrotum. Okay, then the left half of the scrotum hangs a little lower than the right. Okay, it is because of the greater length of the spermatic cord. Okay, so it is a loose pouch-like sac on the skin that hangs below and behind the penis. Okay, it lies below and behind the penis. Then, under the influence of cold and in young, the scrotum is short, corrugated, and closely applied to the testis. Okay, so under the influence of cold and in young, the scrotum is short and corrugated and are closely applied to the testis. Okay, so this happens because of the contraction of the dartos muscle. Okay, so the scrotum is actually like a climate control system for the testis. Okay, so it acts as a climate control system. So for the normal production of the sperm, the temperature needed for the normal production of the sperm is lower than the body temperature. Okay, so the dartos muscle in the wall of the scrotum allow to contract and relax the scrotum. Okay, so because of this, the testis will be moved towards the body for the warmth, and it can be moved away from the body for the temperature to cool down. Okay, so it is to control the temperature. Okay, it is like a climate control system for the testis. Okay, it helps in the production of the sperm. Then it is divided on its surface into two compartments by the raphe. Okay, so you can see in the picture, the raphe divides the scrotum into two compartments. Okay, so each compartment contain one testis and the epididymis. Okay, so this raphe is continuous forward to the under surface of the penis. Okay, in this picture you can see the raphe is continuous. Okay, here you can see it is continuous towards the under surface of the penis and backwards towards the anus along the midline of the perineum. Okay, so the raphe, it divides the scrotum, then it goes forward to the under surface of the penis, and then along the midline of the perineum it goes to the anus. Okay, it goes backwards to the anus. Okay, then each compartment contains one of the two testes and one of the epididymis. In the walls of the scrotum. Okay, so the layers of the scrotum, the scrotum has the skin, then the superficial fascia. Okay, so the superficial fascia, it is also called as the dartos fascia, then the spermatic fascia. Okay, so the spermatic fascia has three layers. You can see in the picture, the skin, then the superficial fascia or the dartos fascia, then the spermatic fascia. Okay, it is also called, it is divided into three fascias. So three fascia, the external spermatic fascia, then the cremaster fascia, and the internal spermatic fascia. Then the last layer is the tunica vaginalis. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis also has two layers, the parietal layer and the visceral layer. Okay. Then the skin. So the skin of the scrotum is thin and wrinkled and pigmented and forms a single pouch. Okay, so it is wrinkled and pigmented and forms a single pouch. Then it is slightly raised. There is a slightly raised ridge in the middle line that indicates the line of fusion of the two lateral labioscrotal swellings. Okay, so the labioscrotal swelling is a structure in the human embryo that represents the final stage of the external genitals before the sexual differentiation. Okay, so it represents the development of the external genitals. Okay, that before the sexual differentiation. So it is the labioscrotal swelling is present in both male and females. So in males it forms the scrotum, and in females it forms the labia majora. Then the next layer is the superficial fascia. Okay, so the superficial fascia is it's also called as the dartos fascia. Okay, so it is continuous with the fatty and the membranous layer of the anterior abdominal wall. Okay, so it is continuous with the fatty and the membranous layers of the anterior abdominal wall. Then here in the scrotum, the fat is replaced by the smooth muscles called the dartos muscle. Okay, then it is innervated by sympathetic nerves fibers and is responsible for the wrinkling of the overlying skin. Okay, so here it is continuous with the fatty and the membranous layer of the abdominal wall. Then the fat is replaced by the smooth muscles called the dartos muscle. Okay, so here you can see the skin, then the cremaster muscles and the dartos muscle, and the epidermis above. Okay, then the spermatic fascia. Okay, so earlier I told it has 3 layers. Okay, so it has 3 layers which lie beneath the superficial fascia and are divided from 3 layers of the anterior abdominal wall. Okay, so the external spermatic fascia is derived from the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle. Okay, then the cremasteric fascia is derived from the internal oblique muscle, and finally the internal spermatic fascia is derived from the fascia transversalis. Okay, so the external spermatic fascia is derived from the external oblique, and the cremasteric fascia from the internal spermatic fascia. The internal oblique muscle, and the internal spermatic fascia is derived from the fascia transversalis. Then the last layer is the tunica vaginalis. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis has 2 layers, the parietal layer and the visceral layer. Okay, so it lies within the spermatic fascia and covers the anterior, medial and the lateral surfaces of the testis. Okay, so the parietal layer of the tunica vaginalis will be lining the scrotum, and the visceral layer will be lining the testis. Okay, so it is derived from the vaginal process of the abdomen. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis is derived from the vaginal process of the abdomen. So the vaginal process is an embryonic outpouching of the parietal peritoneum. Okay, it is an embryonic outpouching of the parietal peritoneum. Then the blood supply of the scrotum. Okay, so the arterial supply. So the arterial supply is given by the superficial external pudendal, then the deep external pudendal, and the scrotal branches of the internal pudendal, and the cremasteric branch of the inferior epigastric. Okay, so the arterial supply, it is provided by the superficial external pudendal, then the deep external pudendal, then the scrotal branches of the internal pudendal, and the cremasteric branch of the inferior epigastric. Then the venous drainage is given by the scrotal vein. Okay, the veins are drained to the scrotal vein. Then the nervous supply. So the nerves are supplied by the ilioinguinal nerve and the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve. The posterior scrotal branches of the pudendal nerve, then the perineal branches of the posterior cutaneous nerves of the thigh, and the dartos muscle is supplied by the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve. Okay, so the scrotum is supplied by the ilioinguinal nerve and the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve, then the posterior scrotal branch of the pudendal nerve, then the perineal branch of the posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh. Then the dartos muscle is given by the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve. Then the lymphatic drainage of the scrotum. Okay. So the lymph of the scrotum, the lymph from the skin and the fascia, including the tunica vaginalis, drains into the superficial inguinal nodes. Okay, so they are drained into the superficial inguinal lymph nodes. Then the clinical anatomy. So the scrotum is a common site for edema. Then it is because of the abundance of the air and the sebaceous glands, it is a common site for the sebaceous cyst. Okay, so it is a common site for edema. Then it is a because of the abundance of hair and the sebaceous gland, it is a common site for the sebaceous cyst. Then the spinal anesthesia of the whole scrotum is difficult to achieve. Okay, so during the spinal anesthesia, the anesthetic effect of the scrotum is very difficult to achieve. Then hydrocele. Okay, hydrocele, it is an accumulation of the fluid around the testis. Okay, here the tunica vaginalis collects the fluid. Okay, so there will be appearance of a swollen scrotum. Then the abnormalities of the scrotal content. Okay, so there are chances of the tumors of the testis. Then the hydrocele. Okay, hydrocele is a collection of fluid around the testis. Then the epididymitis. Okay, epididymitis is the inflammation of the epididymis. Then the varicocele. Okay, so it is like the varicocele. It is a condition. It's similar to the varicosity of the leg. Okay, you might have seen the varicocele of the varicose vein in the leg. It is the varicocele of the scrotum is similar to this condition. So here there will be enlargement of the veins of the scrotum. Okay, so there will be when you palpate the scrotum, you can feel the bag of worms in the. Okay, it feels like a bag of worms. The scrotum feels like a bag of worms. Okay, so that is a varicocele. Okay, varicosity of the scrotal veins. Then the spermatocele. Okay, that is an abnormal pouch in the epididymis. It is the formation of an abnormal pouch in the epididymis. So the tapping of a hydrocele is a procedure for removing the excess fluid from the tunica vaginalis. Okay, so the procedure of removing the fluid is to do the tapping. Okay, tapping means you can puncture a needle and tap and remove the excess fluid from the hydrocele. And the anatomy of the human penis. Okay, so the penis is an organ in which the sperm is introduced into the female. Okay, so it is an organ that is used to introduce the sperm into the female. So the male intromittent organ. Okay, intromittent means the organ that uses to introduce the male gamete into the female reproductive tract. Okay, so it also additionally serves as the urinary duct. Okay, so the penis is the organ used for introducing the sperm into the female reproductive tract. Then the penis is consisted of three parts. The corpus, okay, it is also known as the body of the penis. Then the penile epithelium, okay, it is the shaft skin, okay, the skin that covers the shaft. Then the foreskin, okay, that covers the glans penis, and the percutial mucosa. Okay, so body. Okay, so the corpus, that is the body of the penis. Okay, the body is made up of the corpus cavernosa and the corpus spongiosum, then the glans penis and the urethral meatus. Okay, so it is made up of three erectile tissues: the corpus cavernosa, then the corpus spongiosum, then the glans penis and the urethral meatus, then the radix. Okay, so the radix is also known as the root of the penis. Okay, its parts are the crura or the crus of the penis and the bulb of the penis. Okay, so the root of the penis. The three parts are the corpus or the body of the penis, then the penile epithelium, that is the skin covering the penis, then the radix or the root of the penis. Okay, so here you can see the bulb of here the bulb, then the crus of the penis, then the body of the body with the glans penis, then the corpus cavernosa, and in the middle the corpus spongiosum. Then the root of the penis. Okay, it is situated in the superficial perineal pouch. Then it has three masses of erectile tissue. Okay, so it has two crura and one bulb. Okay, so when you can see there is, here is the root of the penis, and you can see two crura. Okay, these are the crura, or the in singular it can be called as the crus. So two crura on both sides and one bulb. Okay, so these are the part of the root of the penis. The crura of the penis consists of two tapering end of the corpus cavernosa. Okay, so you can see it is the tapering end of the corpus cavernosa. It's going like this. Then it is also called as the crus. Then each crus is firmly attached to the pubic arch, and it is covered by the ischiocavernosus. Okay, so the crus is attached to the pubic arch. Then it is covered by the ischiocavernosus. Okay, so the ischiocavernosus is a muscle that it is between the ischium of the hip bone and the crus of the penis. Okay, so this muscle helps in the erection of the penis. Okay, so the ischiocavernosus is a muscle that is between the ischium of the hip bone and the ischium of the hip bone and the crus of the penis, and it helps in the erection of the penis. Then the bulb of the penis. So the bulb of the penis is the proximal tip of the corpus spongiosum. Okay, so here you can see the corpus spongiosum goes to form the bulb of the penis. Okay, so it is the proximal tip of the corpus spongiosum, and the bulb is attached to the perineal membrane in between the two crura. Okay, so it is situated between the two crura. Okay, so the two crura and in between the bulb of the penis. Then it is covered by the bulbospongiosus. Okay, so here you can see the crus of the penis is covered by the ischiocavernosus, and the bulb is covered by the bulbospongiosus. Okay, so this muscle helps in the erection, then the ejaculation and the urination. Okay, in male, the bulbospongiosus helps in the erection, urination and the ejaculation. Okay, ischiocavernosus helps only in the erection. Then the bulbospongiosus helps in the erection, urination and the ejaculation of the sperm. Okay, so you can see the corpus spongiosa, corpus cavernosa goes to form the crus, and the crus is fully covered by the ischiocavernosus. And the body of the penis consists of the pineal shaft and the glans penis. Okay, so here you can see the pineal shaft and the glans penis. So it is continuous with the root in front of the lower part of the pubic symphysis. Okay, so the body of the penis is continuous with the root which is in front of the pubic lower part of the pubic symphysis. So the penile shaft is made up of 3 columns of erectile tissue. Okay, so I already told it is made up of 3 columns of erectile tissue, the corpora cavernosa. Okay, so there are 2 corpora cavernosa on both sides. Then the middle one is called as the corpus spongiosum. Okay, so there are 2 corpora cavernosa and 1 corpus spongiosum. Okay, so here you can see these are the corpora cavernosa. Okay, so you can see the 2 crura of the penis. Okay, it is a continuation of the corpus cavernosum and the corpus spongiosum. Okay, so the glans penis is the continuation of the corpus spongiosum. You can see it is the glans penis, it is continuous with the corpus spongiosum. Okay, and the corpus cavernosum ends below the glans penis. Okay, so it has a rounded end that ends below the glans penis, and the glans penis is the continuation of the corpus spongiosum. Okay, so the body consists of the penile shaft and the glans penis. Then it is continuous with the root of the penis. Then the penile shaft is made up of 3 columns of erectile tissue, the 2 corpora cavernosa, then the 1 corpus spongiosum, okay, on the middle. Then the erectile tissue are covered by the layers of connective and fibrous tissue, the dartos fascia. Okay, so the dartos fascia, it covers the penile shaft, then the perpetual mucosa and the scrotum. Okay, dartos fascia we already told. In the scrotum, it is a layer of the scrotum. It covers the dartos fascia. It covers the scrotum. Okay, it is the superficial fascia of the scrotum. Okay, so the erectile tissues are covered by layers of the connective tissues and fibrous tissue, the dartos fascia, then the areolar tissue, then the Buck's fascia. Okay, so the Buck's fascia is also called as deep fascia. Okay, deep fascia of the penis or the fascia of the penis, and the tunica albuginea. Okay, so the dartos fascia is a layer of connective tissue just beneath the cutaneous skin layer of the penis and has elastic fibers. Okay, so it is a connective tissue just beneath the cutaneous skin layer of the penis. Okay, so after the skin, it is the dartos fascia. So earlier I told in the scrotum, it is temperature sensitive. It contracts or relaxes during the change in the temperature. Okay, so in the scrotum, it helps to move the scrotum towards the testes towards the body for the warmth and away from the body for the temperature to cool down. Okay, so it is the dartos fascia. It is temperature sensitive and expands and contracts with the temperature changes. Okay, so then it only loosely connected with the underlying areolar tissue, so it provides mobility and elasticity to the penile skin. Okay, so the dartos fascia, they are loosely connected with the underlying areolar tissue. Okay, so it provides mobility and elasticity to the penile skin. Then the next layer is the areolar tissue. Okay, so the areolar tissue bears the dorsal arteries and veins and the dorsal nerves associated with the penis. Okay, so it is the next layer downside below the dartos fascia. Okay, it bears the dorsal arteries and the veins and the dorsal nerves associated with the penis. Then the next layer is the Buck's fascia. Okay, so it is the deepest layer of the. Okay, it is also called as the deep fascia. Okay, so the beneath the areolar tissue lies the Buck's fascia. Okay, it is a dense layer of connective tissue which surrounds the two erectile tissues individually. Okay, so it surrounds the both the corpus cavernosa and the corpus spongiosum. Okay, it is beneath the areolar tissue. Then it is also called as the deep fascia of the penis. Okay, so it is a dense layer of the connective tissue which surrounds the two erectile tissue types individually. Then the next layer is the tunica albuginea. Okay. So the tunica albuginea has superficial longitudinal fibers enclosing the both corpora and deep circular fibers that encloses each corpora separately and also form a median septum. Okay, so they has superficial longitudinal fibers, so they encloses the both corpora and deep circular fibers, so they form a median septum. Okay, so in this picture you can see the tunica albuginea. It covers the both corpora cavernosa and it forms a median septum in between. Okay, so you can see here is this is a corpus cavernosum on both sides, then the corpus spongiosum in the middle. Okay, one corpus spongiosum. Then the corpus cavernosa. Okay, so the penis has two corpus cavernosa. Okay, and it is a continuation of the crura. Okay, so we have already discussed that it is the continuation of the crura of the root of the penis. Okay, so they are in close opposition with each other throughout the length. Okay, so they don't meet anywhere. Okay, so they are in close opposition with each other throughout their length. Then the corpus cavernosa, do not reach the end of the penis. Okay, so I already told in this picture you can see the corpus cavernosa. It does not reach the end of the penis. It ends below the glans penis. Okay. Okay, each of them terminates under cover of the glans penis. Okay, in this picture you can see the corpus spongiosum is the continuation of the glans penis. Then the corpus cavernosa ends below the glans penis. Then the corpus spongiosum. Okay, so it is the forward continuation of the bulb of the penis. Okay, so the corpus spongiosum, it is the continuation of the bulb of the penis. Then the terminal part is expanded to form a conical enlargement called the glans penis. Okay, so the corpus spongiosum forms the conical enlargement at its tip, the glans penis. Then throughout the length, it is transversed by the urethra. Okay, so in the middle of the corpus spongiosum, the urethra passes through the middle of the corpus spongiosum. You can see here to the middle of the corpus spongiosum, the urethra passes. Then it is surrounded by a fibrous sheath. Then the glans penis. Okay, so this structure is the glans penis. Okay, you can see here, this is the glans penis. So the glans penis is a sensitive bulbous structure at the distal part of the penis. Okay, so it is a sensitive bulbous structure at the distal end of the penis. Then it is the expanded part of expanded cap of the corpus spongiosum situated above the rounded ends of the corpus cavernosa. Okay, we have already discussed this point. It is on the situated above the rounded ends of the corpus cavernosa. Then the glans tapers at the tip and has a urethral opening called the urethral orifice or the urinary meatus. Okay, so the opening. So here it has an opening that is called as the urethral opening or the urinary meatus. Okay, you can see here. Okay, so this is the urethral opening or the urinary meatus. So the circumference of the base of the glans form a rounded projecting border called as the corona glandis. Okay, so the total circumference of the, okay, this is the circumference of the glans penis. It forms a corona glandis. Okay, it's the border. The rounded projecting border is called as a corona. Here, okay, it is the rounded projecting border. Okay, so it is called as the coronal sulcus. Okay, so the circumference of the base of the glans form a rounded projecting border called as the corona glandis. And the corona glandis appears overhanging the tissue fissure between the shaft and the glans called the coronal sulcus. Okay, so the corona glandis appears like it is overhanging the tissue fissure. Okay, so it is the area between the shaft and the glans. It is called as the coronal sulcus. Okay, the fissure between the glans and the shaft. It is called as the coronal sulcus. Okay, so here when you see the corona glandis looks like it is overhanging the coronal sulcus. Then at the ventral tapering of the corona glandis, an elastic band of the tissue called frenulum of the prepuce connects the foreskin to the ventral mucosa. Okay, so here you can see. Okay, here you can see the frenulum. Okay, so this is a frenulum of the penis. So it is at the ventral tapering of the corona glandis. Okay, it is an elastic band of tissue. Okay, so it is an elastic band of tissue that connects the foreskin to the ventral mucosa. Okay, so it is an elastic band of tissue that connects the skin with the ventral mucosa, foreskin with the ventral mucosa. Then it helps retract the foreskin over the glans. Okay, its function is to help retract the foreskin over the glans. Okay, so then within the glans, the urethra shows a dilution called as the navicular fossa. Okay, so there is a dilation in the glans, within the glans. So here you can see there is a dilation in the urethra within the glans penis. Okay, so this area is called as the navicular fossa. Okay. Then the potential space between the glans and the percus is known as the percutaneous sac. Okay, so the space between the glans and the percutaneous sac is called as the percutaneous fossa. Okay, so the potential space between the glans and the percus is known as the percutaneous sac. Sorry, percutaneous sac. Okay, then the smegma. So it is a sebaceous material which is collected in the percutaneous sac within the, which is secreted by the sebaceous gland which is present in the corona glandis and the neck of the penis. Okay, so the corona glandis have various sebaceous gland that secretes a substance called smegma. Okay, so it is collected in the percutaneous sac. Then the supports of the body of the penis. Okay, so this ligament supports the body of the penis. Okay, so the first one is fundiform ligament. Okay, so it extends from the linea alba and splits to enclose the penis. Okay, it is superficial to the suspensory ligament. Okay, so it extends from the linea alba and splits to enclose the penis. Okay, so this ligament supports the body of the penis. Then the suspensory ligament. Okay, so it lies deep to the fundiform ligament. Then it extends from the pubic symphysis and blends below the fascia on each side of the penis. Okay, so this ligament, the suspensory ligament, it lies deep to the fundiform ligament. Then it extends from the pubic symphysis and blends below the fascia on each side of the penis. Then the next part of the penis is the penile epithelium. Okay, so the first part was the radix or the root of the penis, then the body or the shaft of the penis or the corpus, then the penile epithelium. Okay, it is the shaft skin and the foreskin. Okay, and the percutaneous mucosa. Okay, so the penile epithelium consists of the shaft skin, then the foreskin and the percutaneous mucosa. So the function of the shaft skin and the foreskin are to protect the glans penis and the penile shaft. Okay, so the shaft skin and the foreskin are cutaneous in nature and serves as a protective barrier. Okay, it protects the penis. Then the skin darkens upon reaching the puberty. Okay, so its function is to act as a protective barrier. Then it darks upon reaching the puberty. Then the shaft skin protects the penile shaft, and the foreskin covers and protects the glands and the urinary meatus. Okay, so the foreskin will be covering the glands and the urinary meatus in an uncircumcised man. Okay, so in an uncircumcised man, the foreskin will be covering the glans penis and the urinary meatus. Okay. Then the foreskin, it is a sensitive double-layered fold of smooth muscles. Okay, so the foreskin is made up of double-layered smooth muscles, blood vessels, neurons, skin, and the mucous membrane. Okay, so it is made up of the smooth muscles, the blood vessels, the neurons, and the skin, and the mucous membrane. Then the highly innervated mucocutaneous zone of the penis occurs near the tip of the foreskin. Okay, so this zone helps in the sexual response in the male. Okay, so that area is near the foreskin. Okay, it is near the tip of the foreskin. Then the foreskin of an adult male is generally retractable over the glans penis. Okay, so in an adult male, the foreskin is retractable above the glans penis. Then during the early stages of the genital development and in infancy, the foreskin and the glans are attached to each other over the mucosal epithelium. Okay, so during the early stages of development, genital development and the infancy, okay, the foreskin and the glands are attached to each other by a mucosal epithelium. Okay, so this is known as the penile adhesion. In an adult man, the foreskin is retractable over the glands, but in the early stages, okay, in younger age or the early stages of the genital development, the foreskin and the glands are attached to each other by a mucosal epithelium. So then gradually, before or during the puberty, the mucosal epithelium keratinizes and the foreskin gets separated from the glands and acquires complete retractability. Okay, so by the age of puberty or before that, the mucosal epithelium keratinizes. Okay, and thus the foreskin gets separated from the glands and it acquires complete retractability. Then on retraction of the foreskin, it forms a highly innervated wrinkly skin near the head of the penis. Okay, it is called as a rigid band. Okay, so when the skin is retracted, it forms a highly innervated wrinkly skin. Okay, near the head of the penis, then it is called as a rigid band. So more particularly, it refers as a transitional area from the external to the internal surface of the foreskin. Okay, so when you retract the foreskin, it is the transitional area between the external and the internal surfaces of the foreskin. Okay, so the penile epithelium, it consists of the shaft and the foreskin and the perpetual mucosa. Okay, and its main function is to act as a protective barrier. And the blood supply of the penis. Okay, so the blood supply, the arterial supply, it is by the internal pudendal artery. Okay, so the internal pudendal artery gives of 3 branches which supplies the penis. They are the deep artery of the penis. Okay, so the deep artery, it is also called as Helicine artery. Okay, so the internal pudendal artery gives of 3 branches, and these 3 branches supplies the penis. They are the deep artery of the penis, then the dorsal artery of the penis. Okay, so it has a dorsal artery, then the artery of the bulb of the penis. Then the femoral artery gives of the superficial external pudendal artery, which supplies the skin and the fascia of the penis. So the femoral artery gives of the superficial external pudendal artery, which supply the skin and the fascia of the penis. Then the venous drainage. Okay, so the venous drainage is done by the superficial dorsal vein and the deep dorsal vein. Okay, so it connects to the internal pudendal vein and ultimately enters the prostate plexus. Okay, so the venous drainage is done by the superficial dorsal vein and the deep dorsal vein. Then the nerve supply. So the sensory nerve supply to the penis, it is supplied by the dorsal nerve of the penis and the ilioinguinal nerve. Then the muscles of the root are supplied by the perineal branches of the pudendal nerve. Okay, so the nerves are supplied by the dorsal nerve of the penis and the ilioinguinal nerve. The muscles of the root are supplied by the perineal branch of the pudendal nerve. Then the autonomic nerves are derived from the pelvic plexus via the prostatic plexus. And the autonomic fibers are distributed through the branches of the pudendal nerve. Okay, so that is the external genital organs. Okay, so the first one was scrotum. Okay, so the 2 external genital organs are the scrotum and the penis. Then the first one is scrotum. It has 4 layers, the skin, then the spermatic, the superficial fascia, then the spermatic fascia and the tunica vaginalis. Then the scrotum was divided into 2 by the raphe. Okay, 2 compartments by the raphe. Okay, the raphe which divides it into 2 compartments, and each compartment contains 1 scrotum. Then the epididymis. Then the penis. Okay, so the penis has 3 parts: the corpus, the penile epithelium, and the radix, or the body of the penis. Then the penile epithelium, or the shaft skin. Then the foreskin and the perpetual mucosa. Then the radix or the root of the penis. Okay, this comprises the external genital organs. Then the next one is internal genital organs. Okay, so the internal genital organs are the testis, then the epididymis, then the vas deferens, and the three accessory glands. Okay, so the three accessory glands are the seminal vesicle, the pair of seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland. Okay, so the first one of the internal organ are the testis. Okay, reproductive organs are the testis. Okay, so the testes are reproductive glands of the male. Okay, so they are oval in shape. Okay, you can see it is oval in shape. Then it is about 4 to 5 centimeter long and 2 to 3 centimeter wide. Then it is 3 centimeter thick. Then it weighs around 12 to 20 grams. Okay, so it is the male reproductive gland. Okay, it is the reproductive gland of the male. Then it is oval in shape. Then it is about 4 to 5 centimeter long and 2 to 3 centimeter wide and 3 centimeter thick. Then it weighs around 12 to 20 grams. Then it is located in the scrotum. Then it produces the spermatozoa and the androgens. Okay, so it produces the male reproductive, the male sex hormones. Okay, so the testis produces the spermatozoa and the androgens. Okay, and it is located in the scrotum. And the testis has two poles, okay, or two ends. Okay, it has one upper pole and the lower pole. Then two borders, one anterior and the posterior border. Then two surfaces, the medial and the lateral surface. So the upper and the lower pole of the testis are both smooth and convex. Then the upper pole provides the attachment to the spermatic cord. Okay, you can see it is the upper pole and it gives attachment to the spermatic cord. Okay, so both the upper pole and the lower pole are smooth and convex, and the upper pole provides attachment to the spermatic cord. Then the anterior border is covered by tunica vaginalis and it is smooth and convex. Okay, so the anterior border of the testis is covered by tunica vaginalis and it is smooth and convex. Then the posterior border is straight and it is partially covered by the tunica vaginalis. Okay, so the anterior border it is covered by the tunica vaginalis and it is smooth and convex. Then the posterior border of the testis it is straight and it is partially covered by the tunica vaginalis. Then the epididymis lies along the lateral part of the posterior border. Okay, so the external features of the testis, it has one upper pole and the lower pole. Then it has two borders, the anterior border and the posterior border, and it has two surfaces. Okay, so the medial and the lateral surface. Then the upper pole provides the attachment to the spermatic cord. Then the anterior border it is covered by the tunica vaginalis and the posterior border is partially covered by the tunica vaginalis. Then the epididymis lies along the lateral part of the posterior border. Then the on the posterior lateral surface of the testis, there is a small space between the testis and the body of the epididymis, which is known as the sinus of the epididymis. Okay, so there is a sinus of epididymis. It is between the posterior lateral surface of the testis. Okay, it is between the testis and the body of the epididymis. Okay, the sinus is found between the testis and the body of the epididymis. Then the medial and the lateral surfaces are convex and smooth. Okay, so the two surfaces of the testis, they are convex and smooth. Then they are attached to the upper pole of the testis. It is a small oval. There is a small oval body called as the appendix of the testis. Okay, so they attach to the upper pole of the testis, there is a small oval body called the appendix of the testis. Okay, there is a small attachment in the upper pole of the testis. It is called as appendix of the testis. Then the coverings of the testis. Okay, so earlier we told all the layers of the scrotum is covering the testis. Okay, so the scrotum is covering the testis. So naturally the coverings of the scrotum is covering the testis. Then in addition to this, it is covered by 3 cords. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis, then the tunica albuginea, and the last one is tunica vasculosa. Okay, so it is additional to the 4 covering. That means the skin, then the superficial fascia, then the spermatic fascia, and the tunica vaginalis. It is covered by, okay, the tunica vaginalis, the scrotum is covered by the parietal layer of the tunica vaginalis. Okay, the visceral layer is covering the testis, and the parietal layer of the tunica vaginalis is covering the scrotum. And additional to this, it has 3 more coverings: the tunica vaginalis, that is the visceral layer of the tunica vaginalis, then the tunica albuginea, and the tunica vasculosa. Okay, so the coverings of the testis. So the tunica vaginalis. So it represents the lower persistent portion of the processus vaginalis. Okay, so this the processus vaginalis, I already told, it is the embryonic outpouching of the parietal peritoneum. Okay, so the processus vaginalis, it is an embryonic outpouching of the parietal peritoneum. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis is derived from the processus vaginalis. Okay, then it is invaginated by the testis from behind, and therefore has a parietal and visceral layer. Okay, so it is folded inwards by the testis from behind. So it has a parietal and a visceral layer with a cavity between. Okay, so it covers the whole testis except for the posterior border. So here you can see the tunica vaginalis is covering the, okay, this is the tunica vaginalis. It is covering the whole of the testis except the posterior part. Okay. Okay, so it has a parietal and the visceral layer within the cavity in between. Okay, it covers the whole of the testis except for the posterior border. Then the tunica albuginea. Okay, so the second layer is called as the tunica albuginea. Then it is a dense white fibrous cord covering the testis all around. Okay, so it is a dense fibrous white cord covering the testis all around. Okay, it is the second cord covering the testis. Okay, so this is the, you can see here, tunica albuginea. Okay, this is the tunica albuginea. It is a white cord covering the testis all around. Then it is covered by the visceral layer of the tunica vaginalis except the posteriorly where the testicular vessels are and the nerves enters the gland. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis, it is the tunica albuginea is covered by the visceral layer of the tunica vaginalis. Okay, so I already told the visceral layer will be covering the, okay, towards the testis, and the parietal layer will be covering the scrotum. Okay, so because of the tunica albuginea is the second layer, the visceral layer of the tunica vaginalis is covering the tunica albuginea. Okay, so it covers the visceral layer covers the tunica vaginalis except the posteriorly where the testicular vessels and the nerves enters the gland. Okay, so there it will, the visceral layer will not be covering the tunica albuginea. Then the posterior border of the tunica albuginea is thickened to form an incomplete vertical septum called the mediastinum. Okay, so here you can see the posterior border of the tunica albuginea forms a mediastinum. Okay, so it is called as the mediastinum testis. Incomplete, it forms an incomplete vertical septum. The mediastinum testis, it is wider above than below. Okay, so the septum, okay, these are the septums. Okay, so these white lines are the septum. It is wider below above than below. Then the numerous septa extends from the mediastinum to the tunica albuginea. They incompletely divides the testis into 200 to 300 lobules. Okay, so this mediastinum extends to the tunica albuginea. They incompletely divides the testis into 200 to 300 lobules. Okay, so these are the lobules. These septums divides the testis into 200 to 300 lobules. Okay, then the tunica vasculosa. Okay, so it is the third layer of the testis. Then the tunica vasculosa is the innermost vascular coat of the testis lining its lobules. Okay, it is lining the lobules of the testis. Okay, so the glandular part of the testis consists of 200 to 300 lobules. Okay, so each of these lobules contain 2 to 3 seminiferous tubules and are highly coiled. Okay, so the glandular parts of the testis consist of 200 to 300 lobules. Then each of these lobules again contains 2 to 3 seminiferous tubules. They are highly coiled. Okay, so when stretched out, each lobule measures about 60 centimeter length and about 0.2 mm in diameter. Okay, so when these lobules are stretched out, okay, kept straight, it measures about 60 centimeter in length. Okay, so the length is 60 centimeter and 2 mm in diameter. Now the seminiferous tubules. Okay, so the seminiferous tubules are, okay, so the lobules contain 2 to 3 seminiferous tubules. Okay, then the seminiferous tubules are typically long, highly coiled and looped. Okay, both ends terminate at the mediastinum. Okay, so these are the seminiferous tubules. Okay, so they are highly coiled loops. Okay, highly looped tubes, and the both ends terminate in the mediastinum testis. And the spermatogenesis occurs in the highly coiled portion. Okay, so the spermatogenesis occurs in this highly coiled portion. Okay, so here is the seminiferous tubules, and the spermatogenesis occurs in these highly coiled portions. So as the tubercles reach the apical portion of the lobule near the mediastinum, they becomes much less convoluted and forms a short tubuli recti. Okay, so here you can see when it reaches the mediastinum, it becomes less convoluted and becomes the convoluted, okay, the straight tubule or the tubuli recti. Okay, so the seminiferous tubules are highly coiled and looped. Then its both ends terminates in the mediastinum. Okay, so in the spermatogenesis occurs in these highly coiled portions. Okay, in these highly coiled portions, the spermatic genesis occurs, and near the mediastinum, the seminiferous tubules are less coiled. Okay, less convoluted and forms the short tubuli recti. Okay, so within the mediastinum, the tubuli recti anastomoses to form the recte testis. Okay, recte testis, which is lined by the flat epithelia. Okay, so the tubuli recti anastomoses. Okay, within the mediastinum, the tubuli recti anastomoses to form the recte testis, which is lined by the flat epithelia. Okay, so here you can see the recte testis. The tubular recti anastomoses to form the, okay, that they merge together to form the recte testis. Okay, so here the absorption and the concentration of the, okay, here the tubular fluid is reabsorbed and the spermatozoa becomes more concentration. Okay, so the reabsorption of the tubular fluid occurs here, and the spermatozoa will become more concentrated. Then in turn, the recte testis gives rise to 12 to 30 efferent ductules, okay, which emerges near the upper pole of the testis and enters the epididymis. Okay, so here the recte testis forms the efferent ductules. Okay, so it enters the epidermis. The rected testis gives rise to 12 to 30 efferent ductules, which emerges near the upper pole of the testis and enters the epidermis. Then it becomes highly coiled and forms a lobe of the head of the epidermis. Okay, so here it becomes highly coiled and forms a lobe of a head of the epidermis. Okay, so where the epidermis and the afferent ductules emerges from the testis, it will become highly coiled and forms a lobe of the head of the epidermis. Then the tubules end in a single ductule, which is coiled on itself to form a body of the tail of the epidermis. Okay, so here the tubules end in a single duct, which is coiled on itself to form a body of the tail of the epidermis. Okay, so here is the head of the epidermis. Then here is the tail of the epidermis. Okay, so the tubules end in a single ductule, which is coiled on itself to become and to form a body and the tail of the epidermis. And it is continuous with the ductus deferens. Okay, so the epidermis is continuous with the ductus deferens. Okay, ductus deferens is also called as the vas deferens. Okay, so the seminiferous tubules are the specific location of the meiosis and the subsequent creation of the spermatozoa. Okay, so it is the location where the spermatogenesis occurs. Then it is consists of the epithelium of the tubercle consists of two types of cells. Okay, the subtenacular cells known as the Sertoli cells, which is tall columnar types of cells that lines the tubule, and the spermatogenetic cells. Okay, so the seminiferous tubules are the specific location of the meiosis and the subsequent creation of the spermatozoa. Okay, in the epithelium lining the tubules are consist of two cells, the subtentacular cells, which is also called as the Sertoli cells or the nerve cells. Okay, they are tall columnar types of cells that lines the tubule, and the second types of cell is the spermatogenetic cell. Okay, so this differentiate through the meiosis of the spermatozoa. Then adjacent to the seminiferous tubule lie the Leydig cells. Okay, so adjacent to the seminiferous tubule there lies the Leydig cell, which secretes the testosterone. Okay, so the Leydig cell secretes the androgen, the testosterone. Then the Sertoli cells function to nourish the developing spermatozoa. Okay, so the Sertoli cells function is to nourish the developing spermatozoa. They secrete the androgen binding protein which increases the concentration of the testosterone inside the seminiferous tubule. Okay, so its function is to nourish the developing spermatozoa. Then they secrete androgen binding protein, a binding protein which increases the concentration of the testosterone inside the seminiferous tubule. Then the arterial supply of the testis. Okay, so the testis is supplied by the testicular artery. Okay, so the testicular artery, it is a branch of the abdominal aorta. Okay, so the testicular artery, it is a branch of the abdominal aorta. Then the venous drainage. The veins emerging from the testis form the Papniform plexus. Okay, so ultimately one vein is formed which drains into the inferior vena cava on the right side, and the left side into the left renal vein. Okay, so in the right side it drains into the inferior vena cava, and left side it drains into the left renal vein. Okay, so the arterial supply, the testicular artery supplies the arterial supply. It is a branch of the abdominal aorta. Then the venous drainage, it drains into it forms the Papniform plexus. It drains into, in the right side, it drains into the inferior vena cava, and on the left side, it drains into the left renal vein. Then the lymphatic drainage. Then the lymphatics from the testis ascends from the testicular vessels and drain into the pre-aortic and para-aortic groups of lymph nodes. Okay, so the lymphatics from the testis ascends along the testicular vessels and drains into the pre-aortic and the para-aortic groups of the lymph nodes. Then the nerve supply. Then the sympathetic nerves arise from the segment T10 of the spinal cord. Okay, so the sympathetic nerves arises from the segment T10, okay, 10th thoracic nerve of the spinal cord. Then the clinical anatomy, unilateral absence of the testis. Okay, so there will be one testis absent in this condition. Okay, then the bilateral absence of the testis. Okay, there will be absence of the both testis. Then the undescended testis. Okay, or the cryptorchidism. Okay, here the testis may lie in the lumbar, iliac, then the inguinal or the upper scrotal region. Okay, so here the testis is not descended. Then the ectopic testis. So here the testis may occupy an abnormal position due to the deviation from the normal route of the descent. Okay, there will be change in the normal route of descent, which is the inguinal canal. Then it occupies an abnormal position. Okay, so these are the clinical anatomy. So there, the unilateral absence of the testis, then the bilateral absence of the testis, then the undescended testis, and the ectopic testis. Then the hermaphroditism. Okay, or intersex is a condition in which an individual shows some features of the male and some features of the female. Okay, in this condition, the male shows the features of the female and the female shows the features of the male. Then the infections and the tumor and the varicocele. Varicocele I already told, it is a varicosity of the veins. Okay, so there will be enlargement of the veins. Then the next internal reproductive organ is the epididymis. Okay, so it is an organ made up of highly coiled tube. Okay, so here you can see it is a highly coiled tube. Okay, it connects with the vas deferens. Okay, it connects the testis to the vas deferens. So it is an organ made up of highly coiled tube. Then the epididymis is a tube that connects the testis to the vas deferens. Okay, then it is a single narrow, tightly coiled tube. Okay, and in an adult human, it is 3 to 4 meter in length. Okay, when it is stretched, it is 3 to 4 meter in length. So it is a single narrow, tightly coiled tube, and it is 3 to 4 meter in length. Then it acts as a reservoir of the spermatozoa. Okay, so the seminiferous tubule is where the spermatogenesis occurs, and the epididymis act as the reservoir of the spermatozoa. Then the epididymis can be divided into 3 regions. Okay, so the head, the body, and the tail. Okay, earlier we told that it has an head. The head is also called as the caput. Okay, so the caput is the head of the epididymis. Then the corpus. Corpus is the body of the epididymis, and the cauda. Cauda means the tail of the epididymis. Okay, so the head of the epididymis receives the spermatozoa via the vasa efferentia of the mediastinum testis. Okay, so it receives the spermatozoa via the vasa efferentia. Okay, vasa efferentia of the mediastinum testis. And it is characterized by a thick epithelium with the long stereocilia and little smooth muscle. Okay, it can be characterized by a thick epithelium with long stereocilia and little smooth muscle. That it is involved in absorbing the fluid to make the sperm more concentrated. Okay, so it receives the spermatozoa via the vasa efferentia of the mediastinum. Then its function is to it is involving the absorbing fluid to make the sperm more concentrated. Okay, it makes the sperm more concentrated. Then the next one is the body of the epididymis. The body of the epididymis. Okay, so otherwise the corpus. So it has an intermediate epithelium and a smooth muscle thickness. Okay, then the tail of the epidermis. Okay, so the third part is the tail or the cauda. So it has the thinnest epithelium of the three region and the greatest quantity of smooth muscles. Okay, it becomes continuous with the ductus deferens. Okay, so it is continuous with the vas deferens. Okay, so the cauda or the tail of the epidermis has the thinnest epithelium of the three regions and the greatest quantity of smooth muscles. Okay, and the tail is continuous with the vas deferens. Then the epidermis is covered by a two-layered pseudo-stratified epithelium. Okay, so the epidermis is covered by a two-layered pseudo-stratified epithelium. Then the epithelium is separated by a basement membrane from the connective tissue wall, which is smooth, which has a smooth muscle cell. Okay, so the epidermis, which is covered by a two-layered pseudo-stratified epithelium, and the epithelium separated by a basement membrane from the connective tissue wall, which has smooth muscle cell. Okay, so you can see the three parts: the head, then the body, and the tail of the epidermis. Okay, so the tail is continuous with the vas deferens. Okay, you can see this is the vas deferens. So the head, it is connected to the testis via the efferent ductules. Okay, vas efferentia. Then the body, then the tail, then it is continuous with the ductus deferens or the vas deferens. Then the epithelium. Okay, so the epithelium lining the epidermis. So the epithelium lining the epidermal tubule contains four cells. Okay, the principal, the basal, the apical, and the clear cells. Okay, so the earlier I told it is filled, lined by epithelium. So the epithelial lining of the epidermal tubules contain four cells: the principal cell, then the basal cell, then the apical and the clear cells. So the principal cells are tall columnar cells which with basically located oval nuclei. Okay, with basally located oval nuclei. Okay, so they are tall columnar cells with basally located oval nuclei. Then they bear long stereocilia and function to reabsorb the testicular fluid. Okay, so the epithelium lining the epidermal tubules contain four cells: the principal, the basal, the apical, and the clear cells. Okay, and the first one is principal cells. So they are tall columnar cells with basally located oval nuclei. Okay, then they bear long stereocilia and function to absorb the testicular fluid. Okay, its function is to reabsorb the testicular fluid. Then the second one is the basal cell. So the basal cell lie between the bases of the principal cells. Okay, so they lie between the bases of the principal cells. Then the next type of cell is the apical. Okay, so the apical and the clear cells are far less common than the principal and the basal cells. Okay, so the more common lining of the epidermal tubule are the basal and the principal cells. Okay, so the apical and the clear cells are less common. So the apical cells are rich in mitochondria and are abundant in the caput epidermis. Okay, so the apical cells are more common in the head of the epidermis. Okay, so the caput is the head of the epidermis. So the apical cells are most common in the caput epidermis. Then in contrast, the clear cells are columnar are most abundant in the cauda epidermis. Okay, so the cauda epidermis means the tail of the epidermis. So the clear cells are more abundant in the cauda epidermis. Then the blood supply is supplied by the testicular artery. Then the venous supply, venous and the lymphatic drainage are similar to that of the testis. Okay, so they are drained into the inferior vena cava on the right and the left renal vein in the left. Then the clinical anatomy, epididymitis. Okay, it is the inflammation of the epididymis. Okay. And the next one is spermatic cord. Okay, you can see the spermatic cord. So the spermatic cord is the cord by which the testis is suspended into the scrotum. Okay, so is because of the greater length, the left scrotum is little lower than the right scrotum. Okay, so the cord, the spermatic cord, it is the cord by which the testis is suspended in the scrotum. Okay, so its contents are the vas deferens and the blood vessels, then the nerves of the testis. Okay, so the contents of the cords are the vas deferens, then the blood vessels and the nerves of the testis. Then it is a group of structures that go through the inguinal canal to the testis. Then these structures include the vas deferens, the arteries, the veins, the lymphatic vessels and the nerves. Okay, so the contents of the spermatic cords are the vas deferens, then the arteries, then the veins, then the lymphatic vessels and the nerves. Okay, so they are the group of structures that go through the inguinal canal to the testis. Then the spermatic cord enters the inguinal canal through the deep inguinal ring and passes out through the superficial inguinal ring. Okay, so it enters the inguinal canal through the deep inguinal ring and passes out of the inguinal canal through the superficial inguinal ring. Then the constituents. Okay, earlier later the ductus deferens or the vas deferens, then the testicular and cremasteric arteries, and the arteries of the duct deferens. Then the tapeniform plexus of the vein. Okay, so it is the plexus that drains the testis. Okay, so the constituents are the vas deferens, then the testicular and cremasteric arteries, and the arteries of the ductus deferens, then the papiniform plexus of the vein, then the lymph vessels of the testis, then the genital branches of the genitofemoral nerve, and the plexus of the sympathetic nerves around the arteries to ductus deferens and the visceral afferent nerve fibers. Then the remains of the processus vaginalis. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis, and the remains of the processus vaginalis also passes through the spermatic cord. Okay, so the tunica vaginalis is derived from the processus vaginalis. Okay, so the constituents are the ductus deferens or the vas deferens, then the testicular and cremasteric arteries, and the arteries of the ductus deferens, then the papiniform plexus of the vein, then the lymph vessels of the testis, then the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve, and the plexus of the sympathetic nerves around the artery to the ductus deferens, and the visceral afferent nerve fibers, and the remnants of the processus vaginalis. Then the covering of the spermatic cord. Okay, so from within outwards, the internal spermatic fascia. Okay, so the internal spermatic fascia is derived from the fascia transversalis. Okay, so these are the spermatic fascia of the testis. Sorry, the scrotum. Okay, so they are the three layers of the spermatic fascia of the scrotum. The internal spermatic fascia is derived from the fascia transversalis. Then the cremasteric fascia. Okay, it is derived from the internal oblique and the transverse abdominis muscle. Then the external spermatic fascia. Okay, it is derived from the external oblique aponeurosis. Okay, so these layers covers the spermatic cord below the superficial inguinal ring. Okay, so these are the coverings of the spermatic cord, the internal spermatic fascia, then the cremasteric fascia. Okay, so the internal spermatic fascia is derived from the fascia transversalis. Okay, it covers the wall of the cord. Then the cremasteric fascia, it is derived from the internal oblique and the transverse abdominis muscle. Then the external spermatic fascia, it is derived from the external oblique aponeurosis. Then the vas deferens. Okay, so the next internal organ is the vas deferens. Okay, so the mass difference is a tubular structure. Okay, you can see here it is a tubular structure that is derived from the mesonephric duct. Okay, so its primary function is to transport the sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. Okay, so it connects the vas difference. The epididymis connects the vas difference to the testes. Then the function of the vas difference is to transport the sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. Okay, it will be connecting the epididymis to the urethra. Then, as it arises from the chorda epididymis, the vas is also tortuous for 2 to 3 centimeter. Okay, so in this picture, you can see the vas is also tortuous for 2 to 3 centimeter. Okay, 2 to 3 centimeter from the epididymis. Okay, so from the it is tortuous for 2 to 3 centimeter. Then there are two ducts connecting the left and right epididymis with the seminal vesicles to form the ejaculatory duct in order to move the sperm. Okay, so there are two ducts which connect the connecting the left and right epididymis with the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct in order to move the sperm. Okay, so the vast difference are two ducts which connects the left and right epididymis to the seminal vesicle to form an ejaculatory duct. Okay, so its function is to move the sperm. So in humans, each tube is about 30 centimeter long, and it is about 3 to 5 mm in diameter, and is surrounded by smooth muscles. Okay, so in human, its length is about 30 centimeter. Okay, when you see it's when it is stretched, it is 30 centimeter long, and it is 3 to 5 centimeter in diameter, and is surrounded by the smooth muscles. Then its epithelium is pseudostratified columnar epithelium lined by the stereocilia. Okay, so the same lining of the epididymis, it is lined by the pseudostratified columnar epithelium lined by the stereocilia. Then they are the parts of the spermatogote. Okay, so I already told it is the content of the spermatogote. Then during ejaculation, the smooth muscles in the wall of the vas difference contracts relaxively, thus propelling the sperm forward. Okay, so the sperm is transferred from the vas difference into the urethra, collecting the secretions from the male accessory sex glands. Okay, so the vas difference is a tubular structure derived from the mesonephric duct. Then its primary function is to transport the sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. Then it arises from the chorda. Okay, so it arises from the chorda epididymis. So the vas difference is tortuous for the 2 to 3 centimeter. Okay, so there are two ducts which connects the left and the right epididymis with the seminal vesicle. Okay, so this is the okay, here you can see this is the seminal vesicle. So the vas difference connects the epididymis to the seminal vesicle. Okay, so and forms the ejaculatory duct in order to move the sperm. Okay, then so its length is about 30 centimeter and 3.5 mm, 3 to 5 mm in diameter, and it is surrounded by smooth muscles. Then its epithelium is pseudostratified columnar epithelium lined by stereocilia. Okay, then they are the part of the spermatic cord. Then during ejaculation, the smooth muscles in the wall of the vas difference contracts reflexively, thus propelling the sperm forward. Okay, it contracts and propels the sperm forward. Okay, it is called as peristalsis. Then the sperm is transferred from the vas difference into the urethra, collecting the secretions from the male accessory glands. Okay, so because of this, the sperm is transfers from the vas difference into the urethra, and it collects the secretions from the male accessory glands, sex glands. Then the vascular supply and the lymphatic drainage of the vas difference. So the vas difference is supplied by the basal artery which is usually derived from the superior vesical artery. Okay, so it is supplied by the basal artery, which is derived from the superior vesical artery. Then the veins from the vas and the seminal vesicles drain into the pelvic venous plexus. Okay, so the artery, the artery supply, it is supplied by the basal artery. Okay, it is derived from the superior vesical artery. Then the veins from the vas deferens and the seminal vesicles drain into the pelvic venous plexus. Then the lymphatic drainage, the lymphatic vessels drain into the external and internal iliac nerves. Okay, so the veins of the vas and the seminal vesicles are drained into the pelvic venous plexus, and the lymphatic drainage is into the external and internal iliac nerve. Then the accessory glands. Okay, so there are 3 accessory glands. Okay, what are those? The bulbourethral gland, then the prostate and the seminal vesicle. Okay, so there are 2 seminal vesicles, then 1 prostate gland and 1 bulbourethral gland. Okay, so there are 3 main types of accessory male accessory glands: the seminal vesicle, then the prostate gland, and the Cowper. Okay, the bulbourethral gland is also known as Cowper's gland, and the urethral gland. And the products of these glands are serve to nourish and activate the spermatozoa to clear the urethral tract prior to the ejaculation. Okay, so the products of the glands serve to nourish, activate the spermatozoa. Then it also clears the urethral tract prior to the ejaculation. Then serves as a vehicle to the transport of the spermatozoa to the female tract, and as a plug to the female tract after the placement of the spermatozoa to help ensure the fertilization. Okay, so it's active. There are the functions are: it nourishes and activates the spermatozoa. Okay, it nourishes and activates the spermatozoa. Then it clears the urethral gland. Okay, urethral tract prior to the ejaculation, and serves as a vehicle for the transportation of the spermatozoa to the female tract. Okay, so then it acts as a plug to the female tract after the placement of the spermatozoa to ensure the fertilization. Okay, so it helps in fertilization. Okay, so the first one is seminal vesicle. Okay, so it's 4:30, so we can conclude this session, the remaining topics in tomorrow's session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for giving us time today. So we'll continue the next session tomorrow, again evening by 3 o'clock. I hope you had a great time with us. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.